Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our edition number 9 of K-Talk, our monthly live show with topics of the coming trade show K in Düsseldorf. Less than a week before the show starts, we already bring together the experts and talk with them about plastics and what they are capable of. In today's edition, we will talk about how the plastics industry is facing the challenges, and my guests are true experts and well-known within this industry. And here they are. Welcome, Manfred Hackel, Chief Executive Officer of Erema Group. Good to have you with us, Manfred, and greetings to Austria.
Hello, Guido. Also from my side, greetings back from Austria.
Next is Dr. Ralf Düssel, a General Manager of High Performance Polymers Evonik and Chair of Plastics Europe Deutschland. Thanks for joining, Ralf.
Thanks, Guido. Great to be here.
And last but not least, Matthias Lesch, Managing Director of company Pöppelmann. Good to have you with us and welcome, Matthias.
Moin, Guido. Thanks for the invitation.
Before we start with our discussion, I'd like to invite you, dear viewers, to participate and send your questions and remarks to us here in the studio, or type them into the chat box right beside the video. I will pass them on to my guests and we will try to answer them during the show. So don't hesitate. The more you participate, the better we know what you are interested in. Okay? Let's start. My first question goes to you, Ralf. What are the 3 major challenges of the plastics industry?
Yeah, first of all, I'm happy to say in 6 days, right, the K-Show starts and we will discuss the most important topics. And as you're asking, I see 3. One is short-term to mid-term, the energy crisis. So where do we get also electricity to a price we can afford? A lot of our membership companies are in really difficult situations currently. So that's a short-term topic. And then definitely the climate change, sustainability. What can plastics contribute to have a CO2 neutral world? And the last one is digitalization. How do we achieve efficient products? How do we trace them? So those are, from my perspective, the 3 major topics.
Okay. Matthias, when you are looking ahead 6 days from now, when the doors of the K will open, will it be a trade show of sorrow and negative topics, or will it be the fireworks of innovation that we are all waiting for?
I choose B, clearly. I think we will have a packed show. It's been 3 years since the last K-Show. We've had COVID in between without the personal interaction that I think we all need. So I'm absolutely sure it will be a very good show with innovation and so on. Of course, it comes at a difficult time. There's no question for us as plastics processors, and many of the processors are the typical K visitors. We are faced, I've mentioned it, with exploding energy costs, but not only energy costs, also other costs. And at the same time, we are seeing a shrinking demand running into a recession. So if we talk about timing, I think from an industry perspective, K couldn't come at a better time. We have big challenges ahead and we need to work on the future topics right now. But of course, the day-to-day situation will maybe dampen the mood a little. But at the bottom line, I'm really optimistic because I think now is the perfect time to talk about what Ralf has already introduced. So I think it will be a really good show. Yeah.
Matthias, I like your positive approach. That's what we need at this coming K. Manfred, I know that you have been preparing this trade show K for a long time now, and now all the topics are brought to Düsseldorf that society, not only the industry, but society is waiting for. So solutions to come to a better CO2 footprint, solutions to avoid marine littering, and all these topics that the industry has been working on. How does that feel for you as part of this industry?
No, I see it quite positive as Matthias it is seeing. It will be sure a good and successful show. I'm fully about that. Because, as it was mentioned, we had time to prepare us as an industry to use, let's say, the 3 years between the 3Ks to bring up the new information, the new society, the new climate issues, and to bring it to a positive way, which solution plastic can bring in this climate topic on a positive way. There's no discussion about that. Sure, there's an image topic, but we could use, and we will use surely together as industry, this K show to show that we are fully aware about the image and what are our solutions as an industry for the world.
Ralph, I have the impression that in the outside world, let's say, outside the industry, people in the everyday life are not fully aware of what the companies in the plastics industry are capable of, what they are working on, what they are spending millions and millions of euros to have innovations ready. How can we overcome this? How can we solve this communication problem? And how can we, for example, spread the message, the positive message, to more people?
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. I think the perspective of plastics is changing. Of course, we have the topic of waste, and also specifically in the ocean. We are addressing that as industry, but I think people understand now also in this crisis situation, during COVID times, how important plastics is, and also now on top, how plastics will help us to get to CO2 neutrality. And I think there will be a big impulse from this K-Show starting next week, where we will show a lot of innovation, where we also make clear how much we invest, be it in innovation, but already in plants, to realize recycling, to really achieve a circular economy, which then at the end leads to CO2 neutrality. And I think there we all are ambassadors. We are ambassadors at the show, we are ambassadors at home with our employees, and really promote the possibilities of plastics for the future.
Matthias, the innovations that you and your company are preparing, like your colleagues within the industry, have never been more intense than now. I think the plastics industry has never been under more pressure than nowadays. Does that enhance the power of engineering and the power of innovation?
Greatly so, I would say, yes. What we will show in our booth in Düsseldorf next week is what we call PCI in serial production, post-consumer recyclates in serial production, in very demanding application across totally different industries. And this has been in the works for many years to make today's things possible. I mean, Manfred can talk about what's needed on the machinery side. We're using some of that, as well as many other partners that have been helping on that. And we need technical solutions, we need engineering solutions for going the next steps. If we want a circular economy to really be successful, we need solutions that have simply not been there a few years ago. And I think we will see many of them in all parts of the industry at the K-Show. And the second aspect, I think, is very important. We need to do this together. I had the honor of participating in a roundtable from the VDI, the German Association of Engineering, about what do we need to rethink circular economy, what do we need to boost circular economy. And one key aspect is it is not enough if everybody does his own or her own part. We need to do it together, and we need the whole supply chain, the whole circle at the table. And where do we have a better chance to do that than at the K-Show, where literally everybody from the world is present. So I think great engineering solutions is one thing, but also discussions, what do we need to do together, is a perfect occasion at the show.
Before we continue with our discussion, I'd like to invite our viewers to participate in our discussion, because you can write your questions and remarks into our chat window beside the video. You can see it there. You can enter your questions there, and I will pass them on to my guests. So, given the fact that this is really a live show, I can read your questions here on my tablet before me, and I will pass them on to my guests. So feel free to participate, will be a great pleasure. Manfred, my next question goes to you. I remember very well at the last K show 3 years ago, you gave me an interview, and we talked about the challenges of the industry at that time. And you told me we have exciting times ahead of us. We will need to team up within the industry to bring circular economy into play. We need to team up. That was 3 years ago. In the meantime, what do you think? Did the industry achieve to team up, to come together, to really jointly tackle the challenges, or is it still a one-on-one play?
No, I fully agree that I said we have to team up, and yes, we teamed up as an industry, as you heard now, and as the customer or the people on the show will see what was happening in the last 3 years by all the economic crisis what we had sometimes, and all of that. But from a standpoint, the industry recognized that we have to team up, and the industry has teamed up. As you said, we are connected together much more as during the last K show, and the results will be shown on the K show with different companies, with different integrations, with different solutions for that, and that is quite important and nice.
Ralf, another topic that I like a lot is the fact that associations like VDMA and Plastic Europe join forces and jointly present topics on the show floor. That is rather new, right?
Yeah, we are very happy. We established this association, Wir sind Kunststoff, we are polymers, to also address what the two colleagues mentioned, really that we, along the value chain, really work together to close the circle. And as you said, we will also present there. And if you allow me making some commercial here, we have Plastic Shapes the Future. That's our special show, where we have a lot of debates. We have several panels during the course of the K show, where we discuss with all the value chain partners, but what is also very important, also with politicians, because they also enable a potential framework or a necessary framework for circular economy.
That's a good point. Politicians are rarely seen on, or have been rarely seen on former K shows. That's a question I always have. Why doesn't, for example, the German Chancellor open the K show? Or why doesn't other politicians join them on the show floor like they do, for example, on automotive trade shows and stuff like that? I think it's a good moment in time to really engage them and really ask them to come to Düsseldorf and see the novelties and the innovations. There was the question of one of our viewers. I have to shortly translate that. Is there somebody who would like to do an estimate? How circular is the industry already on a scale of 1 to 100%? How circular is the plastics industry? Manfred, I think it's your turn.
Yeah, thanks. It's a good and on the other hand a hard question, because if I answer it with figures, and we all know worldwide we have only 8% recycling quote. So that would be only the number 8 from 100 and shows what we have to go. If we look but in Europe, or especially on some application in Europe, for example, PET bottle in Germany, there we have a collection rate over 80-85%. So there we are close to the 100. If you look on the other hand, polyolefin in Europe, we are around roughly packaging waste by 15 to 17%. So it seems it's not an easy answer, but it shows that in some application we still have a huge potential and a long way to go. but that is recognized in the last 2-3 years. And I would say it in this way, not where we are today. So I would answer it in which speed we are now on the way. 3 years ago, I think the speed was maybe 5 to 10 kilometers per hour. And nowadays, 3 years later, I guess we are with a 100 kilometer per hour speed train there, which is still room for a but it shows how accelerated it was in the last 2.5 years.
Matthias, maybe you can help me with the next question of our viewers, saying what are the major obstacles? That means what makes it so difficult to increase the percentage of circularity?
That's hard to say in general. If we look at our circularity, our recycling quota is above 50%. And if we talk about expanding that, regulatory restrictions are one major topic. But especially over the last year, we've also seen availability of PCR materials, quality and price. But all of that should not hide the fact that I think our industry can do more already with what we have. I think part of the task for the next 3 years is to simply use existing means, existing material streams and so on more, while developing for the midterm what we will need for the process beyond that. But in the short term, I think those that are mentioned, but the biggest single obstacle is getting started. We see that in all the industries where we've started, to get from, I don't know, 10 to 15% and beyond is easier than to get from 0 to 5. I think as an industry, we need to get started and need to get going. That's clearly number one.
Last week, I had an interview with one big brand owner in consumer goods, and he told me one sentence that I really liked. He said, nowadays, the consumer is really demanding for recycled products like packaging and so on. That is the first time ever that the consumers help us introduce such innovations into the market. Is that true, Ralf?
I can agree. That has changed. It depends on the industry, I would say. On the application, if customers are really willing to pay more, if it's a recycled, bio-based, or maybe a product with a lower CO2 emission. We don't have that labeled yet. So I see an increase, the willingness in every industry yet, or in every application by the customer, by the end users. I don't see that yet, or we don't see that yet.
Let's talk about what the industries can do. We know we are distinguishing the two different ways of recycling, which is post-industrial recyclates and post-consumer recyclates. We've just mentioned that. If we're looking into the industries, that means post-production recyclates. How far are we, Manfred, and what can we do more to run those materials in circle and enable a true circular economy, at least within the industries?
I think for the post-industrial industry, I think there is already a lot of business done. It's almost common that the post-industrial recycling material has to be handled inside the company. Otherwise, the company is not, maybe from an economic standpoint, efficient. So there is a lot of things done. And there we already, in my opinion, on a good level, on a good status. There is not too much room, even more. Sure, by some very complicated packaging, then it is maybe a little bit more difficult. But then we have to think that we go back to the other end product and not to the same product. If we think about multi-layer film, to use then the in-house recycled material, heavily printed material, not again for that. Use it maybe for an injection part, which is also fine and good, but it stays inside the industry, inside the company, to make it, let's say, more efficient, more circular inside the industry. And I think there are a lot of room is already done and is solved, and we're fine on that, to be honest. I think the biggest issue is on the post-consumer side still, and there's also the negative image coming.
Okay, there is another question I would like to pass on to you, and let's see if we can reply to it. One of our viewers says, the current multiple crises seem to start a trend against globalization. It seems many companies move their capacities from Asia back to Europe. Is that true? Do you have figures or estimations? For example, China is a big player in plastic industries. What will change? I think that's a good question. Who of you would like to reply? Matthias?
Yeah, maybe I can start. Oh, Matthias.
I don't have any figures, but if I just use my gut feeling, then yes, the supply chain reliability in many aspects, and regional aspects are one of them, we are seeing is becoming a much more important factor in the decisions. And I would agree that that will definitely favor European and probably North American locations.
Ralf?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because it mixes right now the current energy crisis, which definitely is a disadvantage for Europe, for Germany, in comparison to China or be it also the US. So right now, I think we need to clearly overcome this crisis. We need to have clear a break on the gas and energy price and a clear also to be competitive as Europe in the next 2 years. Otherwise, I see the regionalization trend really in connection with this. So this is short term, I think very important. And then long term, it's nevertheless the markets in Asia are growing and markets in the US are growing. There is an interest of our industry to participate. So I see certainly certain regionalization, so local production, also to overcome the supply chain topics we had over the last 1 to 2, 3 years. Nevertheless, most of us are global players, and we want to continue playing in that market, and we cannot just concentrate on one specific region.
I'm curious about one thing that I'm fearing at the moment, because if we look at the energy crisis, if we look at the problems with supply chains, I have the impression that a big portion of the engineering skills has to go into looking for alternatives to solve the actual problems instead of finding innovations and working on future topics. Do you share this opinion? Is there the risk of losing time, valuable time for innovations, that we now need to focus on problem solving? Manfred?
Allowed to answer it, I would say I do not see that there is a conflict between solving the current issues and stopping innovation. I can see it by our company due to the supply chain issue what we have, sure, as all the others, there's no discussion. We are looking and try to solve this issue, but in the parallel way, we find out new solutions, which is also, by the way, an innovation. So I think it could be also combined to solve the current situation issues by a new innovation, for example, and that we have seen in our company, and I think that could be also, sure, not only be in our company, I guess that's general in the industry. So I do not see a conflict, and by the way, due to current situation in the supply chain, for example, that is mainly for purchase department and production, but not mainly for R&D. And due to the fact that R&D is working separate and solving them by getting new solutions, they are also involved and bring up new innovations. So I do not see a conflict between these two topics.
Matthias, I saw you agreeing.
You did, yes. I think it's tempting to say for a few years now, let's only live in the short term. We solve COVID and then we worry about the future. Now we solve energy crisis, supply chain, and then we worry about the future. But I think the opposite is true. 2022 has shown us that we need to do something to protect the climate. And it has also shown us that we need to save fossil resources so we become more independent from countries like Russia and the whole gang. And the answer to both is circular economy. That is by far the biggest lever we have as an industry. So I think now more than ever, we all see that we not only have to continue, we have, especially now this year, need to put all energy into this because that's the best part we can do also for the current crisis, not only for the long term.
I'd like to bring in our audience again. There's one question saying, wouldn't it be realistic to relocate to local plastic recycling instead of depending on international connections? It's cheaper and has a green footprint. That's a good point, isn't it, Ralf?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we need to heavily work on recycling. And foremost, there's mechanical recycling, which we need to expand, which we need to build. And on top of that, then for, let's say, complex products like wind turbines or so, we need chemical recycling. And also there, the industry is very willing to invest, which then helps the circular economy. And we are committed as industry to invest several billions until 2025 already into chemical recycling. But to do that, I have to say we need also the frameworks, the regulatory framework, that chemical recycling on top of mechanical recycling is accepted as towards recycling rates, as we discussed in the beginning. And I'm optimistic that the K-Show will do a big push on that we can show chemical recycling is real and that's helping our future there.
Manfred, the next question comes from Portugal, saying, what about the price difference between virgin and recycled on top of lack of consumption and loss of purchase power from consumers? The industry can evolve for greener production, but what if consumers can't buy more expensive packaging? That's a good one as well.
Yes, it's quite a good one. No discussion about that. And I think, yes, that could be a challenge if the recycled material is in the long term extremely more expensive than virgin. I think that's not, in my opinion, the right way. It has to be in a balance. That it is still attractive for the converter as well due to that for the consumer. I think otherwise we have a negative impact. And nowadays, sure, in some application with some material streams, there is a lack of recycled material, and due to that, the economics, similar with the energy or with the gas, drive up the recycle price. But that, in my opinion, will be not on all the time. It is sure as soon as more capacity are installed in Europe, this will be reduced a little bit in a more accurate situation for all the parties which are involved in that situation.
Matthias, your company, Purpleman, is producing plastic parts, and you have to fulfill the demand of your customers. Do you feel a sufficient acceptance of recycled materials in your products, or do your customers, not really go the long way and call for completely recycled materials? What's the actual situation in the industry?
It depends on the industry and it depends on the company. In general, we see in all our industries a large understanding that we need to move towards a circular economy. I think the general consensus is absolutely clear. It gets tricky when we get into the details, when we talk about specifications, when we talk about quality requirements and so on. In the applications we will show next week, we found good solutions together with the customers, and we see more and more willingness. But that is definitely something that needs to be continued over the next years to really come to a larger scale. But if we look back 3 years, I would say the acceptance is much larger. We're in much more specific projects. 3 years ago, we talked about a lot of things in like, maybe we could do this and this. And some of those applications are now in serial applications that we can show now in Düsseldorf. So the progress is there, but we need to continue.
There is one topic that we haven't touched so far in our little show, which is the problem with young people coming to the industry or not coming to the industry. That means future employment problems are visible already. That has to do with an image problem, at least that was until the time before COVID. Then things changed a little bit, and now the question is, will the industry be able to be attractive enough for young people, for students, for example, to come to the plastics industry, Ralf?
Yeah, very valid point. I think we have generally an aging population, so that's a topic, and there is already independent, I would say, on the reputation of an industry or the willingness to go into, for example, production industry. There is already a slight war for talent. And the image of the chemical industry, being the plastic a part of it, I think is changing. As we see that now, that the chemical industry is really 90% of our life. It's everywhere, and plastics be the same. So there is no life without plastic, and I think we have to work on increasing that change in the perception of those younger talents. I think we as industry are going to universities, trying to explain that, try to attract young talent. Also the K-Show will be an opportunity. We will have a lot of young people there, be it from university or even younger, to show, and that's also why we have experiments at the show, to show where plastics can play an important role, and also to fulfill CO2 neutrality, you need plastics. And I think that's something where you can also bring a kind of purpose to those young talents and say, okay, you can help to make circular economy reality.
Matthias, what do your colleagues from HR department say? Is it possible to get new talents on the market for a company that is processing plastics, or is it still difficult?
It is. We just had more than 50 apprentices start on the 1st of August. Some of them also in dual degrees with universities. But it is also getting more difficult. There's no question about it. I totally agree to what Ralf said. If we want realistic perspective, then if we're serious about CO2 neutrality, the world will need more plastic applications, not less, because plastic is in almost all the applications better than the alternative materials. So of course, I think there's a part of the younger people more on the activist side that want to complain about what's not working, but for those that want to help shape the future, the plastics industry has really fantastic opportunities. And yes, it takes a lot of work to convince them, but I think it's possible. And I think it will continue to be possible, yes.
Manfred, I know that some weeks ago, IREMA opened a new R&D and innovation center at your headquarters. Can you fill the offices with skilled and willing engineers, or is it difficult to get those young people in Austria?
Let's say it in this way, it's more difficult than in the past, but still, due to that we're in the recycling area, it is easier in comparison to other plastic industry companies around in this region, that we have to say. So we are on the lucky and nice green side, but I still believe also that we can convince the young people in general, not only as a company, in general as a plastic industry, we've shaped the future with the information that plastic has a nice CO2 reduction on our climate if we compare it with other materials, that this is a quite positive trend, and that will bring us, let's say, in a better position in the future.
6 days to go, and the K in Düsseldorf will open its doors. What are the topics you are most keen on? What are you focusing on when going to Düsseldorf? The number one preferred topic on the K show. Let's start with Ralf.
I would have said the main topic is meeting colleagues, connecting. So that would be my major thing after 3 years, and then having the COVID restrictions. I'm really looking forward. I think we have like 3,000 companies coming to K-Show. So my main topic will be connection, and then talking about circularity.
Okay, Matthias, your most favorite thing when you come to Düsseldorf?
I hate to be boring, but I can only agree. In topics, it's definitely circularity. For us as a visitor, we are also a company visiting the show as a potential customer. It's also digitalization as the second topic. But number one, clearly circular economy, and that across the whole value chain.
All right, Manfred, your preferred topic?
My preferred topic is quite similar, but I would say it in this way, to see and to feel how the circularity on the K-Show has improved in comparison to the last K-Show. That circularity is not only in the whole number 9, the circularity is all over the entire K-Show, and that would be nice to see and to feel, and that is my preferred topic, beside digitalization, to see and feel how things has moved forward in the industry.
So if we all together could give a hint or a recommendation to our viewers, what would you recommend to our viewers from outside and inside the plastics industry? Where should they go to when coming to Düsseldorf, when coming to the K? What are the most exciting topics that this industry is capable of? Maybe not only on your booth, but on your colleagues' booth. What would you recommend them, Ralf?
Yeah, of course, I have to recommend our booth. Sorry for doing that. We will show examples of design to recycle. So we will have single-use products, single material products, be it a toothbrush out of one material, but be it also an entire car seat. So to show design to recycle, to improve products so that they can be easier recycled. But I made already the commercial for our special show as Plastics Europe, together with the Messe Düsseldorf, which I think really interesting discussions on different topics of the entire industry, talking about circularity, talking about the energy crisis, but also talking about digitalization. And really those discussions, I think, will give a good overview then to go to the other booths, which of course are also interesting.
Matthias, your recommendation, where should people go to?
All of the above, then come to Pappelmann, and once you're done there, I think my recommendation would be to think about in advance what are the 1 or 2 specific problems you need to solve to progress in circular economy, and go search for those, because the answer will definitely be there at the K-Show.
Manfred, now it's up to you.
2 locations.
Where should people go to?
There are 2 locations where you have to go besides the Arema booth to show the whole entire value of that. You have to go to the Circonomic Center, which is outside. The first time in the middle of the K-Show, in the outside area, there's the Circonomic Center from the VDMA, where, let's say, over 10 companies, 13, 14 companies, bring together the circularity to show what is possible in recycling as well in digitalization, because both are needed for circularity. And I think these 2 locations, hall number 9 and the Circonomic Center outside, you have to go.
Okay, sounds great. But before we are ready with our today's little show, I would like to have a view into the future, and not only look at the coming K-Show in 6 days, but the next one in 2 years' time. So what will be the topics then? What will be the industry's topics and what will be the society's topics? Please, short answers or replies to this question. What will be the future topics that the industry will work on? Ralf?
Yeah, first of all, I hope then we will not talk about the energy crisis anymore. We have a level playing field globally again. I think that's important for our entire industry to have that topic solved. And then I think there will be still the sustainability topic. I hope then we have much higher recycling rates. We have the legal framework that companies can invest and have the security that it's also considered as recycled. And we will see way more, I would say, design to recycle examples, and have way more examples of already closed loops together with brand owners and having the entire loop closed.
Matthias, the future perspective for the industry, what will be the challenges in the future?
I would think that a lot of the concepts we will see next week will in 3 years be shown as state of the art. And if I would have a wish, I would hope that in 3 years we would see first specific solutions for getting polyolefins, especially polypropylene, food grade applications via mechanical recycling.
Interesting point. And Manfred, your perspective or your wish or your crystal ball?
My wish would be that on the K 2025 we will celebrate that we could achieve the European targets, which are there, the first for 2025. That's number one. Number two is then also to show what is already possible in food contact polyolefins with mechanical recycling. So hopefully we can work and discuss on that and have already there the solutions. And last but not least, I think we should not forget that we should also start the discussion about circularity not only for Europe, that we start strong with the discussion and have the first nice cases outside of Europe, in Asia, in America, in the South America and Africa, because still that we have to solve for the image of plastic. And I think that could be then really the showcase and the topic, how we transport the solutions, what we could achieve in Europe to the other continents to make the image quite more positive of plastic all over the world and not only in Europe.
Very nice, and I would like to finalize all that with a quote of one of our viewers who says he is expecting good beer and good conversation on the K-Show in Düsseldorf. I don't know where he wants to get the good beer from, because, well, that's personal opinion. All right, gentlemen, we have come to the end of our today's and last K-Talk. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for participating and all the best. We will surely meet in Düsseldorf next week. Dear viewers, thank you as well for joining today. If you want to watch our K-Talk again or share it with your friends and colleagues, just have a look at our landing page where we will shortly place the video on demand. You will find all our previous shows there as well. If you want, we will meet in Düsseldorf on the show floor next week. So don't hesitate to come to K and see for yourself what the plastics community is capable of. Thanks again for watching. Stay healthy and bye-bye.